My half-sister via my dad contacted me after she left foster care 18 months ago. Dad and her mom lost custody of her when she was a baby and she went into the system. I was 7 at the time and my parents had divorced after Dad got her mom pregnant with her. Neither shaped up enough to take her back and none of her bio-relatives wanted her, at least the ones that were approached. Dad was estranged from his family, so I have no idea if they heard from anyone related to CPS back then. My mom was approached and told the social worker she would not take my half-sister. She told me about my half-sister and her being in foster care and told me that one day my half-sister might want to contact me. The day came and I was like, you know what? If she has questions, I'll try to answer them and we'll see what happens. She was enthusiastic to have me in her life and came on very strong. I set some boundaries and she pushed on them a lot until I let her know she was at risk of losing contact with me again. She backed off and we started getting to know each other like the strangers we were. She asked about my life, childhood and mom a few times. She focused a lot on whether my mom had other kids. When I was 13, Mom took in my cousins, her niece and nephew, after their parents died. My sister was always so weird about that and recently brought it back up again and wanted to know what I thought about that and whether Mom needed time to consider it. I told her that wasn't something we needed to talk about. She went off, saying of course it was. She called my mom a witch and said that she let her go into the foster system to rot and separated us when, a few years later, she could take on 2 kids just because they were related to her. She started saying my mom owed her better than that, seeing as she's my sister. I lost my crap with my half-sister and told her my mom owed her nothing. I said she wasn't my mom's kid and my mom would not have been the right person to raise her since she was born from Dad's affair, and she should be looking at her bio-relatives to be mad at if she really wants to blame people for letting her go into foster care. My half-sister said she had every right to feel like my mom failed her and should have stepped up. She said she was a baby and she went through a living nightmare her entire childhood in the system. She told me I was an idiot for yelling at her and an even bigger one for defending my mom. She's still a kid in many ways and had a rough life, so I feel like my response was too much. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot, you're exactly right. Your mom owed and still owes her nothing. Plus, she was possibly still hurting from the affair too. She was in no way your mum's responsibility, and I understand why she would take your cousins but not your half-sister. Who needs a daily reminder of your SO's infidelity? I can understand your half-sister's pain. She's understandably angry about the situation she was forced into and understandably jealous as well. She's directing that anger in the wrong place, but again she went through a rough situation and compared it to OP's and the cousins. I have a friend who's raising her husband's affair baby, and I think she's a saint. But she wanted to and she could afford to, and her older kids are adults now, and she has nothing to do with her ex. No one would have blamed her if she'd backed away from the whole thing. Wow, saint doesn't feel like enough to describe this woman. She is like the peak of humanity. Just wow. OP, I think if you can be as patient with her as you can and try to understand, it's not really about your mum but about what she lacked growing up. Poor kid probably needs a truckload of therapy to sort out her issues from a crappy childhood. I'm not saying you have to let her talk crap about your mum. You can correct that, but try not to hold it against her. And what genius told her your mom didn't want her? Who hands a teenager a list of all the people who rejected her? She should never ever have been told that. In her mind, it's probably just rejection on top of rejection. Not that what she said was okay, I just empathize with her. Update: someone gave half-sister some info about what was in her file from her entering foster care. It's how she got my name too. She never found a family to keep her. She was bounced around a lot and no bio family stepped in. I'm not willing to deal with this for the rest of my life. I never would have reached out to her, and honestly, having her in my life is not important to me, but I felt a bit bad turning her away when she had nobody. I don't have our dad's contact information. He lost custody of me after she was taken away. I, 35 male, was married to Laura for 7 years. We have a son who's a tween now. She was the light of my life. When we were both 28, we found out she had a rare form of cancer. She passed away 5 months later. This crushed me and I was left drowning in my grief for a long time afterward. My son and I have been attending therapy weekly ever since. It's been tough, but we've made a lot of progress. I didn't feel up to another relationship for a while. I filled my time with hobbies, friends, and spending time with my son and family. Then, a little over a year ago, I met Kayla, 33 female, at a work event. We share a niche hobby where I live, so we enjoyed chatting about it. Eventually, we began to go out together. She's great, but different from my wife. I love her for who she is as an individual. I was hesitant at first, but after speaking with my therapist, I decided to try for a committed relationship if we took it slow. At first, she was amazing. I told her about my past and that my son came first, even before our first official date. She was very compassionate and understanding about everything. After a few months of smooth sailing, I decided to introduce her to my son, and they also got along great. For the first time after Laura's death, I could start to see a possible future with someone else. Everything started to go downhill around 4 months ago. She seemed to be a bit more distant than usual, so I sat down with her one night to ask her what was wrong. She teared up and confessed that she felt I'd been neglecting her lately. She then said that she feels I'm using her as some replacement for my dead wife. This came as a total shock. Some of me will always love Laura, but I didn't feel like I was ignoring Kayla. I asked for some specific examples, but she didn't say much afterward. I felt guilty that I'd made her upset, so I ended up apologizing and arranged for us to have a few more date nights, and she seemed happy again. Then, 2 weeks later, she had to go to a cousin's wedding. I couldn't attend because of work, but she was only gone for a day. When she got back, I asked for some pictures, but she just said there hadn't been any of her. I thought it was a bit strange, but I didn't pry. Then, the next day, a co-worker of mine showed me one off of a private page on Facebook. I was shocked to see an expensive pair of my wife's earrings on Kayla. My son's room has a small cupboard with pictures of him and his mom, letters from her and some of her prized jewellery. I checked it as soon as I came home, and the earrings were returned to the cupboard but in a different spot. I confronted her and she got mad, yelling at me for assuming she'd be so careless as to lose or damage the earrings. I told her I was hurt she'd go behind my back and take something sentimental, even if they were beautiful. She eventually broke down and apologised, and after a serious talk about boundaries, we moved on. Things improved for a while before her strange behaviour started. It began with her changing her hair colour to match my wife's. My wife had naturally light blonde hair that a lot of women dye their hair to today, so while I thought it was strange, I wrote it off as a beauty choice. Then she began regularly straightening her hair. She has wavy hair and my wife's hair was pinned straight. She also changed her clothes to be more like my wife's, or at least the one she's seen in pictures. She also had her ears double pierced and got a cartilage piercing like my wife. This was all incredibly unnerving, but she just said I was crazy. I asked my family and they said I was nuts too, so I ignored it. Then she brought up having my son call her Mama. I said I wasn't a huge fan of the idea, but if my son wanted it, I suppose it'd be fine. She went on a whole rant about how it was different because he called my wife Mommy, so it's not like she's stealing a title. He said no, and she was a bit cold to both of us for days. She seemed like a totally different woman than the one I fell in love with. Everyone around me just said I was probably nervous since it's my first relationship after Laura's death. The final straw was when she got a tattoo that was almost the exact same as my wife's. It was in the same spot and colour, just with a slightly different design. That was my final straw. I sat down and confronted her a week ago with everything. At first, she denied it all, but then cried and said I never loved her. She said she felt that she had to live up to the memory of a ghost. This upset me because I'd asked her before what I did specifically, and she wouldn't discuss it. Plus, she was the one being weird and copying Laura. She kept sobbing and saying I didn't love her. I got so sick of it I yelled at her, saying that if she felt so unloved we should just break up. I honestly do like her, but I've seen how miserable she's been lately, and I don't think this relationship is good for her mental health. She got dead silent and just left and drove away. I was just so tired of everything. Later that night, she was admitted to the hospital. She has no living family, so I was listed as her emergency contact. She wrote a long letter to me saying she loves me so much, but obviously I don't feel the same, and I don't love her even a fraction of how much I love my dead wife. I'm distraught over this. She's been so strange lately, but I really did love her before all of this. My mom and siblings keep saying that I'm awful for pushing her to this point and that I should have doubled down in reassuring my love for her instead of ending it. They all got along great with her and had been hinting that they wanted us to get married so my son would have a mother again and possibly some siblings. I didn't think I was the idiot, but my whole family was cold to me and I had no idea what to do. They're saying I should visit as soon as possible and support her with this to rekindle our relationship. I'm not sure if I want to do that. She's so unhappy with me and seems obsessed over my dead wife. I keep thinking over this and wondering if I should have reassured her of my love again or broken up with her more tactfully. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Bringing a woman into your son's life who is mentally unstable is not better than not having a mother figure. If you're going to have a healthy relationship with her, she needs to be happy with herself first. Anyone worth being with will understand your son comes first, and so should she. That means a mentally stable partner. If not, it's not going to work. I think his family feels it's time he moved on and found a new mother, since his son needs a mother. What nonsense! I hope OP runs away. Also, OP, I'd recommend you don't let your family have unsupervised time with your son anymore. They may try to pressure him into trying to convince you to get back together, or, even worse, that it's his fault since he refused to call her mommy. I'm so sorry you're having to endure this. Dude, do not visit her, do not speak to her, do not try to help her in any way. You broke up. Now cut her out and make it permanent. Contact a lawyer and see if they can send a cease and desist so you're not her emergency contact. I'm serious, she is nuts. And the letter she wrote? Really? How much you actually didn't know about her? My fiancé and I have been together for 6 years and we're getting married in May. My fiancé's stepfather married his mom when he was 3 and raised him like his own. His mom died from breast cancer when he was a teenager, but his stepdad let him stay home until he was 26 and even trained him to be a mechanic like himself. I greatly respect his stepdad for raising a child that's not his own and helping us both when needed. He co-signed for our first place because neither of us had regular jobs and income, and when we bought a place, he and my fiancé did all the renovations. He's a great guy and lives with 4 rescue dogs. I'm Chinese American, so the idea of a stepdad, it's not really in the culture. Being as close as a bio dad is unfathomable, but I can see that they are close as if they were blood related. My own bio father is a deadbeat to me. He dated my mom when they were both young and left when I was born. He didn't give us money and my mom never asked, which is crazy if you ask me. After I was an adult, I found out that he never wanted me, but she did and felt guilty because he wanted her to get rid of me. So it's not like he wanted me to exist. He visited me a few times in my childhood but never let us see his other family, so I have a half-sibling I only met when I was older. My mom and I were pretty poor growing up, we had government aid, and when I got older I realised my half-siblings were raised in a middle-class home, and my mom and I suffered for very little reason. So I have no reason to want my bio-father to walk me down the aisle. When my bio-father found out about the wedding, he offered and I pretty rudely declined. I was mad at my mom for telling him, but she thought I should forgive and let him walk me down the aisle because no matter how much my fiancé's stepdad helped, he wasn't family. I don't consider my bio-father family either. So, am I the idiot for wanting my fiancé's stepdad to walk me down the aisle? Edit, I asked Mom to walk me down the aisle and she declined. Said a man should walk me down the aisle. But she doesn't want my fiancé's stepdad to. He thinks no matter what my bio-father did, he's my father, so he should. Well, tell her obviously your bio-dad isn't a man, so you found one. You are not the idiot. The tradition of your father walking down the aisle with you is to release you from his care to the groom, to give the bride away. Your father never had you. He's not the right person to walk you down the aisle. That burn was so on point I could feel the heat from here. OP's bio-dad is a loser. I swear, that's the only response OP needs. Ignore your mom. She grew up in a culture that ingrained into her mind that she is a doormat and, unfortunately, doesn't understand that it's not a good way to live. You can tell her that you refuse to eat bitter and want a better life than what your deadbeat father gave the two of you. Tell Mom to take a hike. Your wedding, your decision, your rules. Walking a bride down the aisle is an honour, not an expectations. Your bio-father did nothing to earn that honour. I'm so glad you found a man with a nice father. Yes, he is his father, who can walk you down the aisle at your wedding. Best wishes and happy wedding. My son was bullied back in high school. He's now an adult with a wife and kids. We received a call from my daughter's school a few days ago. She bullied one of her classmates. It was nothing serious, just some name calling. We punished her and made her apologize. My son was there when we received the call. He took it very personally. He's now completely ignoring his sister. Last night he called to invite us to dinner, asking us to leave that witch at home because she's not invited. I was surprised and asked him what the heck was wrong with him to refer to his little sister like that. He said that he hated bullies and didn't want them at his home. I told him to get some damn therapy because he clearly needed it and told him to call us after he worked through his issues and decided to apologize. Until then, I don't want to see him. He called me an idiot and hung up. You are the idiot. How you worded telling your son to get therapy comes across as an insult, as if getting therapy is something to be ashamed or embarrassed about. If you genuinely think your son will benefit from therapy, then this topic should be approached from a calm and supportive angle, no matter how angry or upset your son might be. No, you don't get to call your sister a witch and act like you deserve sympathy, especially if she's a child in school and you're a grown damn man. Kids don't have empathy figured out. Take some kind of witch to talk crap about a little girl over the phone, in my opinion. Some people have gotten too used to that word. It's such a nasty thing to call a person, especially a child in school, let alone your own sister. You are not the idiot. If a grown man calls a child names, he needs therapy to assess his problems. You did not condone your daughter's behavior. You stated it was some name calling and nothing major. Yes, it's not nice, but teenagers can be little brats sometimes. You learned your lesson, apologize, and hopefully understand it for good. God forbid if, a few years down the line, his children do minor bullying. What's he gonna do? Kick them out of the house? Protecting a child from an unhealed adult is your responsibility as a parent.